Welcome. You're watching the Rent to Own Your Home Sweet Home TV show, where we help renters become homeowners. Many Canadians dream about becoming homeowners. They want to have a place to call their own, set down roots in a great community, and feel a sense of stability. The challenge is that homeownership is becoming a distant dream because mortgage rules are getting much tighter, prices are growing faster than ever, and add to that some minor setbacks in your personal life that drained your savings or affected your credit, and you might just feel like you're stuck renting. The good news is that you can still get into homeownership even if you don't have perfect credit today or a large down payment saved up. Stay tuned. Welcome back to Rent to Own Your Home Sweet Home. I'm your host, Rachel Oliver, and my co-host just happens to be my husband. Welcome, Neil.
Hi, Rachel. Thank you. It's been a long time.
Since this morning.
Yeah, since this morning, yes.
So we have been working together for over 10 years.
Almost 11.
And now we have an opportunity to share with you what it is that we do, because what we do is pretty great.
I think so. I love what we do.
We help families rent to own their home sweet home. And that's essentially what we'll be talking about today. And over the years, you have talked to a lot of people. It's in the thousands.
I would estimate over 5,000 for sure.
So over 5,000 people have inquired about how they can rent to own their home sweet home.
Correct.
And what is the sentiment when you pick up the phone and you talk to yet another family that's struggling to get into home ownership? What does the conversation sound like to you?
Well, it's really about frustration, and what aren't people frustrated about today in today's market? We've got high house prices, so people, and affordability, not really a good fit. We've got high rent. People are now having to bid for rentals, which is crazy. It's driving that market up. We've got affordability, of course. We've got lack of stability because when landlords can't increase the rents willingly, they then will ask for people to move out so they can move back in, or they're selling their property because they don't want to be landlords anymore. There's just so many things, including also, and how could I ever forget the tight mortgage rules that we're currently working with them.
Test,
yeah,
right?
the stress test, plus the qualifications that banks and lenders are now looking for. It's much higher than it's ever been at any point in the past.
Is it usually a credit-related issue that's stopping them from getting into a mortgage, or maybe things to do with the down payment? What are some of the other constraints that they have?
Probably out of 100%, 50% of the people are dealing with credit challenges. They've come out of a divorce, they've maybe gone through a consumer proposal, or they've done a bankruptcy, or they've just run into a situation where, money has been tight and they've gone into, delayed on payments, and now they're into collections. But there is also another subsection that don't have enough down payment. They have 4%, even 5%, but the banks are looking for 10, 15, or 20, depending on what their credit situation is. Self-employed people, more than ever, are having a tough time getting in because they're writing off expenses against their income, of course, and not reporting enough income to qualify under the stress test. So there's a lot of things that are stopping people from getting into home ownership, and it's not just one thing. But in many cases, it's a collection of a couple of those things for each family that we're talking to.
And when you're talking to these families that can't get into home ownership because of these tighter mortgage rules and some of these other constraints, are they feeling like they're the only ones out there?
Absolutely. It's amazing to me when I talk to people about their credit challenges, and they're always like very hush-hush. Like, I don't really want to tell you because it's just me. And, meanwhile, I hear this story on a daily basis that, I've gone through credit challenges. Credit challenges are very common. We already know this in the Canadian market, that the credit for people is very difficult, right?
It's like your report card, and people don't really understand how it works.
Well, the challenge is people aren't educated on it, right? We don't really get credit education in high school or elementary school. So when people get out and they get a credit card, they spend on it, and then they can't keep up with their payments. And then what ends up happening is they have a lot of debt compared to their income, which obviously is going to hold them back in many different things, not just with owning a home, owning a car, maybe even getting that Best Buy credit card that somebody wants to buy that big screen TV. Sure, it holds them back.
Absolutely. So what are some of the stories that you've heard? And I know you've heard a lot of different stories. Does anyone in particular stand out in terms of how they felt that they were the only ones, that they'll never get into home ownership, and you were able to turn things around for them?
Yeah, so just recently I spoke to an amazing couple. They were in a bad first marriage, and that ended in divorce, and they decided that they wanted to move on and sort of restart their life, and they found each other, came with family, so they each had kids. But because of their divorce, they were in a situation where they needed to do consumer proposals. Each one of them had to do their own consumer. Now, they have paid those out, which is a testament to their determination because they really wanted to get through that part of their life and move on to the next phase. But when they went to the banks after having paid out their consumer proposals, they were basically told, no, unless you have 20% down, which they didn't, they only had 5, they were not able to qualify at this time. Unfortunately, even though they had paid out their consumer, they had not repaired their credit enough that the banks were going to look at them favorably. So they figured that their only option was to rent. And then they did some research online, found that rent to own was another option. We spoke, qualified them. They've gone looking, they found a great house, and now we're moving forward with that purchase. So they don't have to rent. Renting or not qualifying for a mortgage is not a death sentence, right? It's not a rental sentence. You're not sentenced to just rent for the rest of your life. You have other options. And that's something that they found by going online and having a look.
And that's a great point. We're going to hold on that. We'll be right back to talk more about how homeowners can overcome some of the struggles to get into homeownership. If you think you're stuck renting because you don't have the best credit or a large down payment saved up, think again. Hi, I'm Rachel Oliver. My husband Neil and I own and operate Clover Properties. We've helped over 300 families rent to own a home, set down roots in a great community, and feel a sense of stability. It is so humbling to be invited into a family's life for a short time and help them secure their future. If you're struggling to get a mortgage today, you may qualify to rent to own your home sweet home. Apply today. Welcome back to Rent to Own Your Home Sweet Home. We're talking about how home buyers can overcome some of the challenges that they face these days to get into home ownership. And we're talking about rent to own. How does rent to own actually help home buyers overcome some of those struggles? That's one way, isn't it?
Yeah, well, one of the things that we constantly refer to rent to own as is a deferred purchase. Really, you're helping, somebody's being there to help you buy the home today, and then you're going to repair your credit, you're going to build up your down payment. And while you're doing all of that, you have the option or the opportunity to build equity by renovating, updating, whatever it might be to the home that you're going to do. But the deferred purchase part comes in that 2, 3, or 4 years later, you're going to buy that property back at a price that's already been predetermined at the front. So no shocks, no surprises, nothing hidden. I think that's really, really important.
So home buyers get to go house hunting.
Absolutely.
They get to pick a home that they will rent to own for a certain period of time, really. And through that rent to own process, they can build up some equity. Correct. They, in the background, are also improving their credit. If credit is an issue for you, that might be relevant. And building up a bigger down payment, because a lot of people nowadays really do struggle with that down payment piece.
Correct. All of those are correct. I think the one thing, the one sort of quotation that we had to put in there is that this is not about creating new affordability, right? Rent to own, still we have to work within the stress test. So whatever we're budgeting today, we still have to ensure that they can qualify for that mortgage at the end of their term. So it doesn't mean, you know, it's a silver bullet where you can come into rent to own and buy $1 million home when the banks will only give you a mortgage for $300,000. So it does allow for you to repair a lot of situations that might be holding you back, gives you the opportunity to get ahead financially, but all still within the constraints of what the current lending rules are.
So affordability is really key, and I think there's a big misunderstanding out there in the general population about what rent to own solves and what it doesn't solve. So let's just recap what problems and struggles the rent to own program can solve for a home buyer.
Sure, so it can solve low down payment. So we can help by building into our program a forced savings component. We can help people build up their down payment with each monthly payment. It can help repair credit, so it gives you the time to repair your credit. So most people can repair credit within 2.5 years. If we build out a 3-year program, most people should be able to come through and improve their score by 100, 200 points that they can now qualify. And it allows people to build equity, like we mentioned, but what it doesn't do is it doesn't create a situation of affordability.
That's great. I'm glad you zeroed in on that. And we are going to talk about how equity works in the rent-to-own program. But first, I want to jump into a really important question. Have people the frustrated home buyers you've been talking to, have they been asking you about the first-time home buyers incentive program that the Canadian federal government introduced in the fall of 2019?
Yeah, some people do. They call and they want to know what's the difference between rent to own and the first time home buyers incentive program. And really, to be honest with you, it's really simple. The first difference is that if you can qualify for a mortgage, you can qualify for the first-time homebuyers incentive program.
So let me just say that again. If you are looking to take advantage of the first-time home buyers incentive program, you need to qualify for a mortgage the conventional way before the
Absolutely.
government will step in to assist you. So
Absolutely.
what does that look like? What do you need to have in place to qualify the conventional way? Because we don't want you in a rent-to-own program if you don't need it.
Right. So you need to have 5% down, number one. Number two, you have to qualify under the stress test. So that's key. Number three, well, now there's some restrictions, right? It's not really about qualifying anymore. It's about what they restrict. So your income multiplied by 4 is what they determine your budget to be. They will only match whatever your down payment is. So if you have 5%, they will match 5%. But remember, really key, it's a shared equity mortgage plan, right?
Shared with who?
With the government, of course.
So the government is now co-owning your
Absolutely.
property.
Yep.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, absolutely. So when you go to sell the home, or it's 25 years, whichever is first, they will then get their 5% back of whatever the future value is of that home. So, it might sound like a great thing right now, but the reality is it does restrict your budget, because if you didn't go through the program, then you would probably be able to afford more home. And really all you're doing is saving a couple $100s per month. But, if it's restricting you from buying in the area that you want to buy in, why do it? So the key, though, is that people looking at rent to own are usually people who cannot qualify because of credit, because they don't have enough down payment. The first-time home buyers incentive program does not apply to people who cannot qualify for a mortgage the conventional way.
So what you need to consider doing is talking to a mortgage professional first to see if the first-time home buyers incentive program would make sense for you. And if it doesn't, rent to own could be the solution.
Absolutely.
Hold that thought. We'll be right back. Stay with us. If you think you're stuck renting because you don't have the best credit or a large down payment saved up, think again. Hi, I'm Rachel Oliver. My husband Neil and I own and operate Clover Properties. We've helped over 300 families rent to own a home, set down roots in a great community, and feel a sense of stability. It is so humbling to be invited into a family's life for a short time and help them secure their future. If you're struggling to get a mortgage today, you may qualify to rent to own your home sweet home. Apply today. Welcome back. I'm Rachel Oliver, and you're watching Rent to Own Your Home Sweet Home. I'm here with Lily, and Lily is a real estate agent. So what kind of families do you meet as a real estate professional? You talk to a lot of aspiring home buyers. What kind of people are interested in rent to own?
So first of all, they're everyday normal people. And actually, a lot of them feel, I don't know where I'm going to be tomorrow. I got 2 kids, I got 3 kids, I have... I've been renting for 17 years. And I don't qualify for a mortgage. I need help.
Do those people ever do the math? If they've been renting for 17 years and whatever they're paying each month, have they actually done the math?
Yeah.
Do the math. You really need to put a pen and paper to this and do the math. Whatever you're paying per month and however many years you've been renting, think about the amount of money that you're not putting back into your pocket. And is that something that you can help them solve?
Oh, yeah. I've done that several times. I'm telling you, one lady, she goes, please help me. Help me find a home. I said, absolutely. She goes, do you supply the homes? I said, absolutely not. It's all MLS. That's it. You're going to be treated just like a regular client that's out there looking for a home. Exactly that way.
So before you jump into talking about the house hunting process, and I think that's a really important thing to talk to our audience about, what was the constraint? What was the struggle? What was the frustration that this lady had when she came to you?
She says, well, my credit's not the greatest. I don't have enough down deposit. I just don't have anything that they're looking for in order to own. And I'll never be able to own. I said, yes, you will. I'm going to hook you up with the right people, and you're going to end up owning a home. I promise you that.
And the right people were Clover Properties.
Absolutely, absolutely. By the time I finished talking to them and explaining the program, they're right in there. They want to do this program. They have no hesitation whatsoever. They're very thankful. I always get texts and emails saying, thank you so much. And I'm telling you, it really, For me, as a real estate agent, dealing with people that are struggling, that have been renting this time and have children, and not to worry anymore because we're placing them in a home, is so gratifying for me.
So what happens in helping them? Do they have an idea of what kind of a home they would want? Because after they get over the whole shock and awe that there's a solution that will help them overcome some of the challenges to getting a mortgage today, once they kind of like accept it, great, then the house hunting process begins.
That's correct.
So how does it all start? Do they just go house hunting and then tell you what they want to rent to own?
No, we meet, and I said, listen, you need to speak to Rachel and Neil, and they need to qualify you to see what you qualify for. And once you discuss with Neil what you qualify for and you agree on the numbers.
Affordability.
Yeah, the affordability, absolutely. Neil gives me a call and says, Lily, we're good to go ahead and start looking for a home for them. So I say, okay, no problem. So we start that process with MLS listings, and we start seeing property to property. I find out what they're looking for in the area they're looking for. Sometimes they have to do a little bit of sacrificing, and that's okay. They're all willing to do that because they want to own. They want their own home.
But are home buyers in general nowadays having to compromise here and there when they're house hunting, whether they get a mortgage the conventional way or whether they go the rent-to-own way? Are they making sacrifices in
Absolutely.
general? What's causing them to have to make sacrifices? It's about budget.
It's all about budget.
So sometimes you think you can own this much.
I get that a lot,
So
yes.
what do you say to that?
I said, no. Why would you want to go for a house that's $1 million and be strapped when you can find a beautiful home for $500,000 and be just as happy? And it's always a stepping stone in your life. You need to take baby steps, and then you achieve what you need to achieve at the end. Eventually, you will get to that $1 million home, but you're not going to be strapped.
I really wanted to stress that. What Lily is saying is that you have to walk before you run, and home ownership is no different.
That's
because
right.
a lot of people do think that they have to get their dream home out of the gate.
Yeah.
But it's better to take your time and wedge your foot into that ownership door and step by step,
That's right.
year by year, build up the
Equity.
opportunity and the equity to springboard from
That's
it.
right.
And in Ontario, we're blessed because
Yeah.
values in our market keep
been
going
excellent.
up. In general,
Excellent.
ownership in Canada is a very lucrative opportunity for anyone who owns a home over the past, decade has definitely seen a lot of equity growth.
A lot.
So it doesn't take that long. It's not a lifetime. I know we get into this idea that, oh my goodness, I'm going to have a mortgage for 25 years and it's going to take forever for this whole ownership thing to pay off. But it's happening way sooner than that.
3 years, they have their home, they're building equity. I always say to my clients, I said, you know what, do a 5-year plan. Do the rent to own. After 3 years, you've accomplished the program. You're living in this house completely underneath your name, the deed's in your name. And 2 years from now, if you want to move, you've built so much equity. Now you move on to your next house. And you keep buying and selling is the name of the game. In my eyes, right?
We're basically creating an opportunity for these folks to go through their rent-to-own process, become mortgage ready, take ownership of the home that they're renting to own, and then potentially they can move up. With your plan,
course.
that's a great idea because every 5 years is where values start to really start to go up. And when you own that home inside of that rent-to-own program, you're already seeing values, but it's after the 3 or 5 years that you really start to see the profitability.
Yeah. It's fantastic. It's a great program. I'm in it for life, and I recommend all real estate agents, and this is not to sell real estate agents, but I recommend all real estate agents to get involved because you're helping a lot of people out there. You really are.
Thank you for that. And if you are a real estate agent and you're looking to learn a little bit more about what Lily does, contact us. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. If you think you're stuck renting because you don't have the best credit or a large down payment saved up, think again. Hi, I'm Rachel Oliver. My husband Neil and I own and operate Clover Properties. We've helped over 300 families rent to own a home, set down roots in a great community, and feel a sense of stability. It is so humbling to be invited into a family's life for a short time and help them secure their future. If you're struggling to get a mortgage today, you may qualify to rent to own your home sweet home. Apply today. Welcome back. I'm Rachel Oliver. You're watching the Rent to Own Your Home Sweet Home. And I'm talking to a wonderful lady who has gone from thinking that she has to rent indefinitely to actually owning definitely today. So I'm really, really honored to be here with you, Janet. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thanks for having me, Rachel.
So it's been a few years, but can you think back to when it all started and what prompted you to reach out to Clover Properties to talk about the possibility of renting to own?
So let's go back for a second and just a little background story. I ran into some family issues. My daughter was born very sick and her medical bill was up the roof. So our credit score was very, very bruised. And we thought that we had to rent forever. We had a good income, we had 10% down payment, but mortgage company won't touch us.
So were you working at the time?
Yes, we are self-employed. We own a furnace and AC company. We have a 6-digit figure, and we have 10% down payment.
So good money, self-employed, and some credit challenges because of an understandable major life event that took your focus away. That's life. I know your husband, and he's a dear man. Was he happy renting?
No, so we didn't see the end. I have 2 boys, and they were 3 and 5, and I was tired of renting. I didn't want to be kicked out by landlord. There was no stability, and I wanted a home where we can build memories in, not just a place we live in with a bed and a dining room table. We want something that we could call ours, and it was the most frustrating thing, talking to mortgage brokers, talking to bank, and they kept saying to you, no, you don't qualify. And we didn't understand why. But it just made absolutely no sense to us at all. So I went to talk to different rent-to-own company, and when I met Neil, and when he went through how the program works, it made perfect sense to me.
So what about the rent-to-own? Because not a lot of people actually take the initiative the way you did. That you start to educate yourself. The banks shut the door on you, and then you say, okay, I'm not going to take no for an answer. Don't take no for an answer. And you started looking. You started, and you went. You knew about rent to own in some capacity. So good for you. You did your research, and that research brought you to Clover Properties. What was the thing that stood out for you the most between the different companies that you talked to?
You guys have an exit plan. Other rent-to-own company I talked to, and they go, you in the rent-to-own program for 2 years, and good luck with that. I was like, but how do you, if I don't qualify for a mortgage right now, how do I qualify for a mortgage 2 years later? I don't know. Well, that's not the answer I want to hear, and that's not how I want to build my kids' future and stability on an I don't know. But with Clover Properties, you have programs and you have procedures and you have standards, and that makes you guys different. And not only that, we have everything's in black and white. I knew exactly how much I'm going to pay for the house and when I'm going to pay for it. And that made everything very clear to me. I'm a very number person. Everything needs to make sense. Number needs to make sense. And Clover Properties made sense to me.
I love how you say that. So at the beginning, when you were exploring the rent-to-own path, were the qualifications different for rent-to-own than they were with the banks?
Well, what you guys did, you guys looked at my income to make sure that I could afford the house that I want. But with the banks, they look very heavily on credit score. They do not ask why your credit score is bruised. For many, many years, I had a credit score of high 700s, and so did my husband. And that changed when we had to pay for doctors and everything, therapy for my daughter. And because of that, they didn't care at all. They just looked at a piece of paper, and I felt like I was being judged by what the 3 digits says on that piece of paper. But instead, you and Neil listened to our story, and we know why we do what we do.
You know, I choke up as I think back because obviously I'm very familiar with your circumstances and why you had that personal setback. And I think that's what motivates Neil and I. We run a rent-to-own program that is designed by families to help families overcome a certain setback, overcome something that is stopping them, and it's a one-off because you deserve happiness and you deserve that stability and those wonderful memories that your family makes in that home. So you had a down payment.
I did.
to come into homeownership, and you used that down payment to start out with rent to own. Do you remember what that down payment was?
I had a full 10% down payment. And even though the house I was asking for, the bank only wanted 5%. I had 10%. And they still said no to me.
So you had 10% down payment. The bank said that wasn't good enough because of
The 3-digit number on my credit score report.
and just for the benefit of you watching us, 680 or better is a credit score that most banks are working off of. Sometimes if your credit score is way below that, even in the high 500s, people get turned away even with a 10% down payment.
That's right.
So what about income? The income situation was strong?
Yes, if we had a high credit score, we would have qualified for a mortgage. Mind you, we had private mortgages approached us, and we didn't want to do that either.
So what stopped you from going for a private mortgage?
They were charging anywhere between 6 to 9% interest rate, and not only that, it needs to be renewed every year, and all the hidden fees that they don't tell you until at the end.
So the down payment that you had saved up, a chunk of that would go to pay off those fees.
Exactly.
So now you're coming into a rent-to-own program, more empowered, because were there any fees with rent-to-own?
No, there wasn't. There was no hidden fees at all. The only thing I have to pay for was a home inspection, which is my home anyway, so I was happy to pay that.
And were there contracts involved? Do you remember? I know it's been a while.
Oh my goodness, it's so long ago, but there were everything, and that's one thing that I was very impressed with Clover Properties. Everything was very, very black and white. I knew exactly how much I'm going to buy the house back at and when I was going to buy it back. So there was no arguing.
So you said you're a numbers person. Do you
Yes.
remember how Neil would have done the numbers for you to give you a sense of what you're going to be buying that house for at the end of the rent-to-own program? Do you remember how those numbers all came together?
Yes, I actually do. So what we did is we took how much I bought the house for, and it was a 4.5% increase per year, which is way lower than what the house is worth. So at the end, when I bought my house back, I actually earned a $40,000 equity.
In addition to clearing up your credit, in addition to basically solidifying your down payment, you also have equity. So for the benefit of you watching us, Janet, how do you define equity?
Equity is how much money you have in the house that belongs to you. So if you have a if you have a house that's worth $500,000 and a mortgage for $200,000, your equity would be about $300,000.
So it's basically the difference between what the house is worth today and how much you owe on that property.
right.
So in your case, we'll just use a fictitious number. You were buying the house for $460,000 at the end of the rent-to-own program, and the house was actually worth $500,000.
And when I was buying my house back, we had an appraiser come in, and my appraiser appraised my house at a much higher price than what I was buying the house back at.
Wow. So did you do things in that house to make it go up in value, or did you just kind of ride it out, say, we bought a move-in ready house and we're just going to enjoy living in it the way it is?
My goodness, Rachel, this house kept my husband busy for the last 3.5 years. We have put in a new driveway, now it's stamped concrete. We've redone our kitchen, we put in new flooring, we put in a deck. You know what we did? We made this house our home. And every spot in this house, I could picture my 2 little boys smiling or laughing in every single corner of that house.
So not only did you achieve your dream of home ownership, you actually achieved your goal of creating the memories that you wanted with your boys.
Yes, we were planning on moving up to a bigger house, but now we look at the house, we look around it, it's like, no, we love this house, this is our home. And this is our first home that we have as a family. That where my boys go to school, they have friends, and they're never getting kicked out by a landlord. How great is that?
That is phenomenal. I'm so happy for you. Janet, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and I hope you'll be back with us.
Well, thank you, Rachel, for making our dreams come true.
If you think you're stuck renting because you don't have the greatest credit or a large down payment saved up, think again. You might qualify to rent to own your own home sweet home and put money back in your pocket. We've helped over 300 families rent to own a home. Find out how we can help you today. Check out our book or visit our website